I'm Alex, founder of Crossover Media, and you might be wondering what's going on. So let me inform you a little bit. A number of the podcasters from Crossover agreed to join me to have a discussion on the NBA players deciding to boycott games in the wake of Jacob Blake being shot 7 times in his back by police in front of his children in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Um, First, the Bucks and Magic opted to sit out, then the Rockets and Thunder, and finally the Lakers and Blazers decided not to play. So we're going to discuss this unprecedented move, but I do want to introduce my guest. First, let me start with Kevin Collar from the bottom line. What's going on, Kevin?
And what's going on, Alex? So name is Kevin. I go by Kevo. Bottom Line Podcast, man. Um, this is kind of something that I feel like is taking a toll on all of us in its own way. And I felt it was I'm glad that we're getting a chance to come together and speak together and just kind of share thoughts, bounce thoughts off one another because in a time like this, sometimes just like verbal communication with others and colleagues is important. So I appreciate you allowing me to come on and be with you guys as we, kind of dive into this thing.
No doubt, man. I'm happy to have you. I also want to welcome Brian Cullen from Ball is Left. Brian, how's it going, man?
Unfortunate to be here under these circumstances. Very fortunate to be a member of the Crossover family. First and foremost, just thank you all for allowing me into the space here. And I look forward to listening to all of you and learning from everybody.
Thanks, man. And what's going on, Ricky from Late Night Lake Show, man? How you feeling?
Man, was preparing to get after a Lakers pregame show today, but obviously that is going to take a backseat to way more important stuff and more important topics. It's crazy. You look back, and it was 4 years ago today that Colin Kaepernick took his first knee. So it's going to be one for the record books when we look at, August 26th on this day looking back. But I appreciate you having me on, man.
Ain't no doubt, man. And last but certainly not least, man, what's up, Ray G from Laker Realm? How you feeling?
I'm going. It's all right. It sucks to be on these circumstances, but it's something we got to talk about and something we need to address.
Nah, it is. So, let me just tell you guys, I might have mentioned it before we started recording, but like, I'm exhausted. Like, I had a headache earlier today, and I purposely have not watched the Jacob Blake video of him being shot in front of his children. Like, I just couldn't. I've seen enough of these shootings. I know enough people that have been roughed up by the cops. I know how I've been treated by the cops. Like, I didn't have it in me to watch it. I did end up watching the Kyle Rittenhouse video in which this white kid shoots and kills 2 people, I believe. But now he's since been arrested. But like after I watched that video, I just was like, all right, I just felt overwhelmed. And I know I'm not alone in feeling this way. So I do want to say shout out to you guys for, we were chatting in the Slack. Shout out to Kevin for bringing it up about us jumping on the live stream. I know we all were thinking about it in different ways, but I'm appreciative that everybody could come together and chat about it here with the group. So where do you guys want to start? With Jacob Blake being shot? Do you want to start with how the players are responding? I'm going to leave it completely up in the air, and you take this dialogue wherever you want to take it and get out. Say what you need to say and take in what you need to take in. So, Kev, you were vocal in the Slack group, man. So what's on your mind?
No pressure. So I'm with you, man. I'm tired. It's exhausting, but I just released an episode this morning, and I spent the first half of the episode. My episodes are like an hour long. I spent the first half of the episode just kind of talking about this whole Jacob Blake incident, and I wanted to encourage people, if they haven't watched it, to watch it. it is gut wrenching, and it is it'll make you want to throw up, as the George Floyd video did. And when you learn, his kids are in the back seat, and you learn kind of the backstory of, he had just broke up a fight, and you see no real resistance outside of walking, your back turned. And then you have people, I mean, and this is the thing about me. I'm a sponge, and I just want to take all types of information from everywhere before I form an opinion. And so you got people who say things like, "Oh, well, you should listen to the police," like that warrants 7 gunshots to your back. And then you got people who are legitimately scared because my parents have had the conversations with me. I'm sure a lot of our parents have with everyone, especially in the Black community, as far as how you're supposed to act if you get pulled over for something as simple as speeding, literally because of the color of your skin. And to see the ignorance even now, it really bothers me. And I feel uneasy, and I have this like loss of hope for everyone, because it's gotten to the point where it seems like it's just the norm. It doesn't seem like it's going to change. Like it's less, it's not sad anymore. It's become, now it's not sad. Now it's normal. And that really bothers me. And I don't really know what to say. I really just, I don't know, man. I'm just at a loss for words.
Brian, I probably talk to you the most out of everybody right now on the panel. You and I exchange text messages frequently. And you are one of the most thoughtful, I'm just going to say it, man, one of the most thoughtful white folks that I have ever encountered when it comes to race and capitalism and the criminal justice system. I can honestly say, man, you seem to get it. And you're a credentialed beat reporter with the Clippers. So you talked to these players, certainly when there was no pandemic, you spoke to them face to face. You're on various calls, but how are you feeling, man? Being a white guy covering this predominantly Black league, seeing the response and hearing the response here from your fellow podcasters and all of us. I mean, where's your head at, and what are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's obviously, Jacob Blake, but it's also more than that. It's a lot of people that weren't caught on camera. It's, it's beyond all the names that everybody's memorized at this point. It's a systemic issue. We keep hearing people talk about it being a broken system, and I completely disagree with that. It's not broken. It's operating in exactly the way it was meant to operate. So to call it broken, I feel like is almost gaslighting what the real issue is. And the issue is that it was built to work this way. And as far as what happened today, it was a long time coming. And we've, you and I talked about the season coming back and the issues we had with it. And there was some issue there concerning the health, and being in the middle of a pandemic, but more than that, it was pulling people away from their communities that are trying to push for change. And I think that this finally came to a head where they're finally realizing, like, no, like, fuck this. We need to go keep pushing the movement forward and stop entertaining people and stop, being a part of the distraction. And while I don't think it necessarily should fall on the players, unfortunately, we see the players take up a lot of the responsibility. I think by not playing, you hit the owners in the pocketbook, right? You're going to hit the owners there, and these owners are billionaires, and they are part of the American elite that hold up this system. And so not playing and hitting them where it hurts, which is in their bank accounts, is going to be one of the biggest steps that anybody can take right now, at least in terms of the power that these players have. Absolutely.
You just spoke on something that I've been tweeting about, earlier today, in that the NBA players, they're rich guys. They got a lot of money, but they are not a part of the same elite that these billionaires are a part of. They are not generationally wealthy. They are first-time millionaires by and large in their families, right? And these owners, they're already losing money from the pandemic, the impact that it's had on the NBA. So these players are sitting out of, these games right now. We don't know how long it's going to last, but even just sitting out of these games, that has an immediate financial impact on the league as a whole and on the billionaire owners. And what it forces the owners to do, like Mark Larcy of the Bucks spoke out today, it forces them to not only back the players, but get on the phone, call the different congressmen, senators, local, state government officials, and say, look, we're the ones bankrolling you guys at all these conventions. We're bankrolling you to be elected. Our players are upset. They're not playing. They're costing us money. You all need to do something about it. So you want to impact change. Financially is the way to do it. Ricky, man, how are you feeling?
Yeah, so this was one of those reminder days, right? We get back to what we think is our normally scheduled programming, and the NBA gets together and we enjoy basketball and we start watching games again, right? We all, still wake up and go to sleep with our day-to-day lives and the issues that we personally face. But at the end of the day, right, the bigger problems aren't necessarily addressed from the point that we had 4 months ago to the point we had now. I think one thing that I wanted to share first off the bat is one of the lessons that I was taught at a very young age, especially when I started driving. They said, you don't get to have a bad day with the police. As a black man or a black woman, you do not get to have a bad day with the police. Now, I'm sure you have seen countless of videos of other people of other races, talking back, yelling, cursing at them, disobeying laws. And what happens? They're treated like citizens, like they are being paid to serve and protect these communities. Yet we're being told as young black and brown minorities that you don't get to have a bad day. And then I'm sure some people are like, oh, well, why would you want to have a bad day with the police? You're supposed to teach respect and to obey people in law enforcement and people in charge. No, yeah, that's true. But we are also human beings. And that is the root of this issue. It's when human beings make mistakes and make bad decisions. And sometimes they make multiple bad decisions. Sometimes they are impaired and drunk and they start running from the cops or wrestling away from them. Sometimes they're trying to break up a fight. And now all of a sudden the attention's been turned to them. And now the police realize that you have an arrest warrant. They want to take you down and arrest you when you were just simply trying to help and break up a situation. How does that end? 7 shots in the back in front of your damn kids. You don't get to have a bad day with law enforcement as a black person in this country. And it's a reminder, even when we start to get back to our normally scheduled programming, every day that is the case. And I'd sit here, I had to take a walk, I had to go and shoot some hoops, talk to my producer. We were supposed to shoot today for our pregame show. Couldn't do that. Can't talk basketball. I can't talk basketball right now. How you think NBA players feel right now? You think they can go out and play a day after, 2 days after, 3 days after? Yet another reminder that you can't have a bad day with the police as a black person in this country. So what am I feeling today? I'm feeling all the lessons that all my people have taught me and the people before me have tried to instill in me. And this is the example why you can't have a bad day with the police in America.
It's funny you said that because cops' job function is not to be judge, juror, and executioner. They're supposed to apprehend and then take you to the courts for the courts and a jury of your peers to decide what the next steps are going to be. Somehow they've taken all the power and no one's holding them accountable and people are making excuses. And it's very difficult to deal with. Renee, man, how are you feeling seeing all this and dealing with all this?
Right now, I can say that I am exhausted. I'm just tired of it. Every single time, every time I look around the corner, somebody's getting shot, somebody's getting killed. And guess what? It's an African American, person. Why? And my question is why? How come no one is being held accountable for their actions. Is it because they have a badge? That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at all. And then you have people that are shooting the protesters. And to me, it feels like it's a trickling effect. The cops don't get held responsible. So everybody else is, hey, it's okay. We can just start shooting. We can start doing whatever we want to. And our community is tired. I'm at the point where I'm just like, what do we have to do? What exactly do we have to do? We can't change who we are. And why are we being punished for our skin color? So at this point, I'm just really, really exhausted. And there's no answers. There's nothing going on. And we're just sitting here and we just have to continue to take it. And I just want to, commend the players for taking that stand that no one else has took. And this is a good move. And I support the players in doing this. And it sucks for us fans. We want to watch the game. This is something we love as well as they do. But again, this is bigger than basketball.
I support if the players decide to boycott the games, I support it. If they decide to play, I support it. They're in a unique situation being in the bubble. They're in a unique situation in being high profile Black people. They're dealing with a number of their families are still home. Some of them I know have been admitted to the bubble and they're going through quarantine or whatever. But like these players are in a unique position. And for us as fans, as people who cover the NBA and a number of other topics, at this point, it feels like every other week there's a cop shooting a Black person, and right. You don't even have enough time to heal from the last incident before another one comes along. Mm-hmm. And not only does another one come along, but the prosecutors and the Congress people, they don't even act until there are protests, until people start getting outraged on social media. Like Breonna Taylor's, her killers are still on the loose. I seen pictures of them at the beach chilling. She's gone and they have yet to be arrested. And so, I'm going to echo what all of you have already said. It is exhausting. Ricky mentioned it. When I grew up, I was told, you get pulled over. Here's what you say. This is how you act. I grew up in a predominantly white area, and I have been in the car with white kids that got crazy with the cops, and not at no point were they afraid that they were going to get shot. Not at no point.
Like different, man. It's just flat out different. And you grow up and you live this years on this earth as a Black man or a white man or a Black woman, and you grow up and you can live a fulfilling and full life. And at the end of the day, we all go into the same casket, same distance into the ground. But how come one of us has to live life with an extra layer over the top of what they have to endure and what they have to go through? The BS of life, they'll tell you, oh, everybody has issue. Everybody just goes through it. You grit your teeth, pick yourself up by the bootstraps, go and be a successful person in America. Yeah, that's fine. But you out the starting gates with no shackles on your feet, literally and figuratively. I wake up every day and I don't know who the people I'm going to run into if they think that I'm in the wrong spot, or I'm doing the wrong thing, or I'm mistaken for someone else. It's already hard enough being a Black man. Hell, I live outside of Chicago. I have family that are in the danger zone. Everybody was the first one to bring up, what about Chicago? What about Chicago? Yeah, that's an issue. Guess what? There is a direct correlation with poverty and crime. Mm-hmm. That goes across all races. Stop pointing out what happens because it's skewed in one location, when in fact this has to do with what is actually important in this country, and that is the class and the wealth you have in your pocket. Oh yeah, once again, you have that layer across you as a Black person that you have to endure. LeBron James had the N-word across his gate in Los Angeles. LeBron James, one of the top 5 most important players the NBA has ever had. $1 million crib, Los Angeles. Same stuff. This is what Jay-Z was talking about, right? Right? Sorry to curse on your show, but this is what Jay-Z was talking about. Still nigga. And this is the issue that we endure right now.
No amount of wealth changes the color of your skin. And those of us who are old enough to remember this, O.J. Simpson thought he wasn't Black. He said he's O.J. and he was accused of murder. And he quickly found out he was a Black man, no matter how well he could run a football. Brian, I do want to build on what Ricky said. I want to ask you this because you and I talk about capitalism and all those things. we're at a point where police budgets are as much as 1/3 the city budgets and a number of cities around the country. Like Ricky said, we know that the more options people have for education, housing, jobs, the less likely there is to be crime. So how are we at a point where police budgets are ballooning the way they are and everybody's just okay with how things are working?
I mean, it comes down to the ruling class, right? When you start to peel away all the layers of the onion, this is exactly how capitalism works. And you keep resources in certain neighborhoods, which they've allocated to white neighborhoods, and you deprive other neighborhoods of those resources. Crime is almost always systemically created through areas where people are not having their needs met. And that is why I myself am staunchly anti-capitalist, because I don't believe in a system where most of the resources sit in the smallest group of people and the largest group of people sit with no resources. It's disgusting. It's absolutely deprived humanity out of the way that people live. How does it get that way? I mean, it gets that way because, I mean, I know that we're coming up to November and we're told vote's the way you make change, but vote's the way you make change if you're a corporation, because that's how far into late stage capitalism this country is. And unless you're providing the billions of dollars that go towards these politicians, for the most part, your interests are not going to be, at hand when decisions are being made. And Ricky, you were talking about people that pull up by your bootstraps and go make something out of yourself. That's bullshit. Because when you look at most of the people in the ruling class, it's generational wealth. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump didn't come from nothing and start his own real estate company. That shit was fucking handed to him. And I'm sorry for swearing on the show, but it was handed to him, right? And that's the case with the 1%ers. Nobody went from $0 to $1 billion. And we were talking about the amount that the players make versus the owners. The difference between $1 million and $1 billion is insane. It's massive. It's beyond comprehension. Like until you actually physically see the difference between $1 million and $1 billion, it's hard to truly comprehend what that gap is. And so, you obviously, I'm a white person. I'm coming from that perspective. I think the biggest thing that white people can do in this movement is, Ricky, you were talking about everybody. There's that extra layer, right? And so that's the extra layer that I don't have is white privilege, because I might have struggle in my life, but it has nothing to do with the color of my skin. Mm-hmm. And that's that extra layer that you're talking about. So the best
Brian,
thing
can
that
I ask you a question about that real quick?
Yeah, of course.
Just the term white privilege. Obviously, the way that you're talking about it is not something that you get offended by. But the more that we, peel back that Band-Aid of, racism in this country, putting the label of white privilege seems to be ruffling some feathers of white people when they're saying, whoa, this is not me. I do this, and that. Why do you think white people are getting offended by that term? And how do you continue to puncture through to them that this is the actual goal and you got to get over some shit?
That's a big question, right? And I wish that I had the definitive answer to that. I think part of the reaction that you're talking about in ruffling feathers comes from white fragility. I think that white people got very comfortable in not having to face the fact that doors have been open for them in life, figuratively and literally in a lot of cases because of the color of their skin. I think especially right now, it's easy for white people to fall in the trap of like, I'm super sad too. This is crazy. Fuck that. You don't get to be sad right now. Like that. Like the point I'm trying to make is white people right now need to weaponize their privilege and go into those spaces that they can walk in and out of freely and go scream for the people that aren't in those spaces right now. And that's why I think what the players are doing right now is important, because it's forcing those billionaire owners to weaponize their privilege, because they get into those dinners, they get into those big gatherings with politicians, the people that have the power in this country, and it's forcing their hand at going to speak for them. You know what I mean? And so, talking about white privilege, it might make people uncomfortable. It makes a lot of white people uncomfortable, but who fucking cares? Keep bringing it up. Keep talking about it. It's nobody's cared. If you've existed your whole life with white privilege and it's bothering you now, you clearly are not taking the time to look at how much your privilege has bothered other people and how little it affected you when they were bothered by it. So why the fuck should anybody care about making you uncomfortable in this moment?
I think that's important. I was literally in a basketball chat earlier, one that I'm always in, and the NBA started, the players started boycotting, and then me and other writers started chatting, and I, along with a number of other people who are black, started sharing our stories with our interactions with the police. And one of the writers, a white dude, started talking about, well, what if someone has a knife? What if this happens? What if? And I said, well, I'm not talking what ifs. We're talking the facts. And I said, for every video that you see of a black person being killed by police, I can assure you there are hundreds a day that you never even hear about. And so I mentioned his white privilege. I said, you are speaking from a position of white privilege. You don't have to worry about when you leave your house. I have to worry about in my neighborhood that I own a home in. I'm one of the original homeowners. I got to be concerned when I go jogging in my neighborhood with my AirPods on if someone thinks I belong here or not. And that's a ridiculous feeling. And he went on to say, well, what we need to stop doing is if we want to work together, you can't play the privilege card. And I said, at that point, I have nothing for you because you're in no position to tell me, someone that deals with this on a daily basis, what I can and can't say, and then reduce it to me playing a card. That's ridiculous. So there's something with that that a number of them just don't want to face. And I said this to my wife earlier about this country, and I thought that this is a really interesting fact about the country. I'm sure I know you guys already know this, but to vote in this country, at one point it was only landowners, white male landowners, but free black male slaves technically got the ability to vote before white women. And to me, that says a whole lot about what white men think about white women, right? Like that says a whole lot about where they stand also. And so the idea that they can't be pushed to the side, just like blacks or Asians or Native Americans or people of Spanish, anyone, like you've got a problem on your hands too if you think that white male elite won't turn on you just as quickly as they do everybody else. But Kev, man, go ahead, Ricky. You have something to say?
Yeah, no, only thing I wanted to amen to that, brother. Only thing I wanted to piggyback off with that is the last election proved to you that this country is more misogynistic than it is racist, right? They'll let a black man be president way before they go let a woman be president. At least that is what they are showing you. So I just wanted to put that out there. No matter what type of, things that we go through as black men in this country, we still have to realize that there is a group that is more at risk than us. And to your point, saying that black men still were able to, vote before, white women. So our own land, excuse me. And, I just think that's important that we still need to continue to keep what the actual bottom line is. And you got to protect women at all costs because they are always the most vulnerable. You'll notice racists, like driving down the highway, all the viral videos of them yelling out their car, all that stuff. Was it always to black women, to black children? Never another black man. You never see a Royal Rumble like that. So,
and let me also be clear. There's some fucked up white women out there too. All right, a lot of them. There's a lot of quote unquote Karens. They're a problem also. So let me just make sure I'm clear to everybody listening and watching this, how I feel about what they're out there doing also. But it brought something else to me before I jumped to Kev. We talked about this past election. For whatever people think of Hillary Clinton, she was certainly more qualified than Donald Trump. In every sense of the word to lead the country, more qualified than Donald Trump. And one thing that jumps out to me is poor white Southerners, blue-collar white folks, how in the world do they identify with Donald Trump, who's from Queens, lived in Manhattan his entire life? He's a New York socialite, never worked a day in his life, yet somehow poor white folks identify with this man. That baffles me. They think that he's one of them when he is clearly not one of them. I had to get that out, and anybody can jump on that when you want to. But Kev, man, what's on your mind? We can't hear you, Kev.
My fault. Y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
So I got this new mic, and it just a push of a button mutes it. And if I'm not paying attention, I'll actually mute. But anyway, you guys have said a lot of great things, and I'm kind of like writing things down because I want to say something at a lot of things. And so I'll just kind of let the conversation, carry itself. But so the most recent point kind of brought up, you were talking about the white privilege and how, that writer you were talking to, like, the second you mentioned white privilege, Brian, you brought this up too. People start to, and Ricky as well, people start to, like, you say white privilege, now they get defensive and they're like, well, wait a minute. Like I struggle too. I do this, that, and the third. And I've noticed it's human nature to, people don't want to look at themselves in the mirror. 90% of the people we encounter on a daily basis are not comfortable with what they see when they look in the mirror. They'll tell you what they want to tell you, but they don't.
Because you're uglier than you think.
Absolutely, and everybody is, and people don't actually want to see that. So it's one thing to look at the mirror on your own. It's another thing when someone grabs you by your collar and puts your face in front of it, because no one ever wants to see that. And that's human nature. So when people start to weaponize terms, especially like, and I'm not saying that like white privilege is as a weaponized term, but the second that you say someone's acting out of white privilege, they take that as, oh, now you're attacking me with the phrase white privilege. And I think it's wild because, I mean, Brian, one of the first things you said was, the system is working exactly the way it was designed to work. And you're 100% right, because when the system was made, I mean, think about the time it was made. There were still slaves in this country when the system was put together.
The Constitution was not written for everybody.
Not in the slightest. No. Not in the slightest. It's not a broken system. I can't express this enough, man. It's not a broken system. Just like you said, it is working like a machine. But that's the problem. And you got people who say things like, oh, well, not all cops are bad. And you're absolutely right. But if you have 10 bad cops and you have 1,000 good cops that are doing nothing, you have 1,010 bad cops. And I'm just being honest. Like, and maybe there's different levels of bad. But if you're not holding your fellow acquaintances accountable, then you're part of the problem, because you're allowing these actions to continue. I also, sorry, and I'm just jumping around because we've had a lot of things.
Please.
Alex, you had mentioned, a lot of things that comes with hitting the pockets. It is crazy. And this alludes right back to Brian's point. Capitalism is, welcome to capitalism in the United States. Like money talks. It's insane. And money, money, people say money can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you just about everything else. And it's wild. And it's the fact that it takes money, or getting to people with money for things to change, because the elitists, the top 1%, own, they have like 70% of the wealth. I don't know the exact numbers, but they have 70% of the wealth in the entire country is 1% of the population. And then how do you expect, how can we as Black people expect to see any kind of change when we don't have, we have nowhere close to that kind of money or access to people with that kind of money. So, we can walk and march and hold a fist up and wear shirts and whatever all day. But at the end of the day, like we as individuals can't change anything. And that's what hurts. Like in the grand scheme of things, we are the ones that change something. We can protest and, but again, it's the elitists, it's the ones with the money. And it's the powerful people. This is why, like, these NBA players and football players and just all these athletes, why their platform is so important, because they are kind of the bridge between normal folk like us and billionaires. They're the bridge. They're the ones that can get to them. For us to get to the billionaires through them, which is why the boycotting is important. And it sucks. What else I got here? Think about all these videos George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. I don't even know if there was a video for that, but a cop's job is to protect and serve. And in all these instances, who are they protecting and who are they serving?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm, I got somebody's knee, my neck's on somebody's knee for 8 minutes. Who am I protecting right now, and who am I serving? And you can't say that they're protecting or serving the public. So who are they protecting and who are they serving? You can't answer that question. If anyone can answer that question, please, by all means. I'm seeing a lot of comments. I like that I can see them, and I love the feedback people are giving. You got to answer that question. I'm all ears, man. At the real Kev, that's my Twitter handle right there. Tell me, because I don't see it. I don't see it, and I think that what people are starting to realize, and I think part of the reason NBA players are starting to also be so frustrated is because nothing's changing. I think people are starting to understand that the Black Lives Matter on NBA courts, the messages on the back of their jerseys, none of that matters. None of that changes anything. You can say whatever you want to say. You can tweet as much as you want to tweet. You can post a black square for Blackout Tuesday. You can put Black Lives Matter in your bio. You could do whatever the hell you want, but that doesn't change anything. That is a way to show your support, but it's not a way to make change. I don't know the answer to the real way to make change, but that's not it. And, a lot of players, Kyrie Irving got a lot of slack for leading kind of that movement of, well, we probably shouldn't go because we don't want to kill the momentum. And now players in the bubble are like, wow, should we have really come here in the first place? Because coming here has done nothing. All that's done is just, make people bicker. People who are like, I want politics out of my sports, like Black Lives Matter is a political issue. That's, I guess, okay. I guess it's political. I thought it was human rights, but that's just me. This really doesn't change anything. This isn't the right route. You can say what you want about the money, about the revenue, the economy, but this stuff is not what's going to get us where we need to get. And that's just the bottom line. I've always said this. Sports are supposed to be a product of a functioning society. And in no way, shape, or form is our society functioning. We're moving, we're surviving, but are we really functioning at the level we should be? And the answer to that is no. Whether it's coronavirus, whether it's racism in America, capitalism, anti-feminism, we can go on and on. Like, we don't, America was at the point where there was this divide, and I'm gonna finish after this. There was this divide, and there were conversations, there was bickering, and there were riots, and there were protests, and so on and so forth. And then basketball came back, hockey came back, baseball came back, and it went right back to our regularly scheduled programs. And next thing you know, back to it again, same thing. Like, it's like when America works at its normal rate, somebody black is getting killed at the hands of the police, or whatever the case. A Karen pops up on social media, or whatever it is. When America's moving like it normally moves, this is the kind of crap that happens. But when we actually put everything on pause for a second and we drew our eyes to the mirror and to what was important, it seemed like for a couple months things stopped. I mean, there were still issues. Do not get me wrong, but it looked like it at least slowed down. And now we went right back to our regular scheduled programs. People just kind of forgot about it. Whatever momentum there was has kind of died down. And, boom, we're right back to square one.
Renee, what are your thoughts right now? I know we've all said a lot, but I'm really curious to hear what's flying through your head.
Man, I mean, just sitting here and listening to you guys, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. You guys brought up a lot of good points. One thing I do want to bring up is how, we're being told how to feel. And that blows my mind. I don't understand how a person that's not going through what we're going through in our shoes can tell us how to feel. Mental healthness also. That's not being brought up a lot. We need to talk about that too for the NBA, for us in general. So none of this makes sense to me. And then it's like I go back to what Kev said when he said about who are they protecting and serving. My question to that also would be, you became a cop for what reason? To protect and serve, right? but you decide to kill a person because you quote unquote claimed that you were afraid. You had your life was in jeopardy, and it wasn't. It wasn't at all. George Floyd, he wasn't gonna do nothing. Same thing with Jacob Blake. Nothing was really probably gonna happen. He had his back turned. So that's what right now my emotions are just crazy because I'm just like, this is mind boggling. Why does it keep happening? Why does it keep happening? It's going over and over again. And our players went, they're trying to, take a stance and with the Black Lives Matter and all of those things like that. But we need really physical change. We need physical change. We definitely need to make sure that the things that the players are trying to do is actually going to make change. Because the boycott, what is the boycott going to do? I understand why they're doing it, but my hopes is that it actually gives us change. So I feel like they're putting their money where their mouth is, and I appreciate that. So I don't know, y'all. I'm just everywhere right now. I can't even front on y'all. I'm just listening and taking it all in.
So I think one of the issues with the police is when you look at the criminal justice system, the police is like the only job in the criminal justice system where you can get by with a GED and 6 weeks of training. Attorneys need advanced degrees. Judges need advanced degrees. You need years before you can become a judge. Like 6 weeks of training and a GED get you a gun, a badge, a bulletproof vest, and a right to walk around the street and tell everybody what to do. That's ridiculous. If the role of a cop should be that job should be as hard to get as becoming an attorney or a doctor or anything else. It's way too easy. It's too easy for some high school dropout that doesn't have nothing else to do to become a cop and then to run amok on the street. Something that I was thinking about late last night. It was like 1:00 in the morning here Eastern time, and the Attorney General from Kentucky was talking about Donald Trump, and he came out. He's a black Attorney General, I think the first in Kentucky, and he supports Donald Trump. And he mentioned Abraham Lincoln. And when I tell you guys, I get so damn sick of somebody bringing up Abraham Lincoln. Like, I can't tell you how much that gets under my skin. That Lincoln's the great emancipator, blah, blah, blah. There's a number of economic reasons why economic and military reasons why Lincoln freed the slaves. But there's a book by Dr. Ibrahim Kendi. He's a professor out of American University, and it's called Stamped from the Beginning. I read it a couple years ago. Great, great book. And he talks about the social construct of race and where it developed from within America. But there's a quote from Abraham Lincoln that I want to read to you guys because I'm so sick of people using Lincoln as like the champion of racial justice. This is what Abraham Lincoln said in 1858. I have no purpose to introduce political or social equality between the white and black races. There is physical differences between the two, which in my judgment will probably forever forbid the living upon the footing of perfect equality. Let me read that one more time because I stumbled a bit. I have no purpose to introduce political and social equality between the white and black races. There is physical difference between the two, which in my judgment will probably forever forbid their living together upon the footing of a perfect equality. Lincoln himself, he didn't think that black and white folks were equal. So I'm tired of Americans holding these people to these high standards that they're like the beacon of light. When the truth is, they're not. They were a part of the problem. So I don't know where to go from this point, but anybody is welcome to jump in. Yep.
Can I share a quick story? So like I said, I'm outside Chicago, right? And I grew up playing AAU ball. I can't tell you the number of times that I've been to Kenosha, Wisconsin. There are like 5 colleges within like a 10-mile radius up there. Yeah, AAU tournaments are one of the biggest hubs is in Kenosha. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. I look back, right, and thinking about, oh my God, I've been up there so many times, and all I can think about is like the basketball tournaments, this, and that. And I can't help to think that in the same town, there are police officers, right, though years later, that felt that black people, a black person, a black male, was such a threat that they needed to grab his shirt and shoot him 7 times. I deal with anxiety, usually like with like bigger things, getting married, having a child, right? Things like that. But I've noticed more it's been about, protecting what's important. You watch a man go to his car and children in the back seat, and he is shot at point blank range. Guess who's, even if he had not survived, guess who's never going to forget those moments? His children, right? How are those children supposed to look at police officers for the rest of their lives? Do you expect them to eventually, gain to trust the police and look around and be like, oh yeah, cops are friendly. They'll protect me. I'll call 911 when, this and that has happened. No, for the rest of their lives, they're going to be like, the police tried to kill my father. Imagine that. That's three boys that America fears the most. 3 black boys that are going to grow up into 3 black men. And you can only imagine how that psychologically can wear on somebody. If I can, I would like to start to turn this to the Lakers and their symbolism in boycotting this game. First I wanted to say I originally thought that the Bucks were just going to boycott, and by that way the Magic couldn't play, right? And it would just be one game in the season, because I had originally thought, the focus needed to stay in Wisconsin. That, by the Bucks being the team that officially boycotted, it would be a Wisconsin issue. They had recently, the Bucks just came out with a quote about them being prideful to play for the state of Wisconsin, but they can't under these circumstances. Part of me almost feels like that should have been the thing. Number 1 team in the East, boycott stays. I have zero problem with the entire league saying, you know what, we're just going to take a break today. And the MLB team, or the Brewers, did as well. But the focus on a state like Wisconsin and the racial tension, especially in Milwaukee. Again, I've been to Milwaukee 30 times, right? And that's just a guess. It is one of the most segregated cities in America.
Kareem has talked a lot about that.
There is a black part of Milwaukee, and there's the white part of Milwaukee. There's the nice part of Milwaukee, and there's the bad part of Milwaukee. Guess where all the good shit is? In the nice part of Milwaukee, where all the, high rises in the downtown area and all that good stuff. That's where the bad part of Milwaukee is, out on the outside, where nobody cares if those schools crumble to the fucking ground, right? So when the Bucks take so much, when the Bucks say they are focused on being a part of the state and representing that state, I don't blame them for saying, no, this ain't us. We're not putting Bucks across our chest, Milwaukee across our chest. I think it's going to be a road game, right? Officially, it'll be an Orlando Ho game. They might have Milwaukee. I don't know. Jerseys are all over the place. But can you imagine a Wisconsin team going out and shooting basketball, bunch of black men and Kyle Korver, and people are still getting, targeted by the police in that state? I applaud the NBA. I applaud the rest of the teams for just stepping aside and saying, nope. Once again, since this country doesn't know how to act with sports, we're going to take your biggest toy away. I tweeted about this earlier, that wouldn't it be something if the NFL players started going, oh, I see how things get turned. I see how these wheels dial up and shit starts to move around and action actually starts to happen. Rush Hour 2, Chris Tucker on the airplane, when trying to break it down, he said, follow the rich white man. That's where, the root to all this is. And if you hurt them in their pockets, like Kev has said, like Brian has said, there could be a response. The Bucks were on the phone with the Wisconsin Attorney General. You think that happens? And the governor. Think that happens if they're not NBA players getting paid millions of dollars on their platform? I'm not trying to hear nobody talk about, oh, what is this going to do? What, them sitting out, it's just sports. Everybody that likes basketball is black. Well, that's not true. Everybody that likes basketball, they're the ones suffering from this. Oh, no. Us missing one game? Alex, whatever little revenue we make from doing these shows and stuff, that is literally ants to Goliath for what these owners would be losing, what Nike would be losing, what Turner Sports would be losing on a daily basis if players just said on the day of games, we're not going to play. Now imagine if on Sunday and Monday night, Patrick Mahomes says, no, I'm good. If Von Miller says, you know what, our boy in Colorado who had anxiety issues and social issues was murdered and then drugged by paramedics. You know what? I'm not going to play today. No, I'm not playing for the Broncos. Why would I do that? What does the state of Denver represent? It don't represent protection for all Americans because that's not what just happened. This thing is much bigger than one team or one sport in one game deciding we're not going to play the game. I expect the NBA to resume, to be honest with you. I expect games to be played. They crown a champion, all that good stuff. Could be wrong in 10 minutes, but if owners are scared about the threat of the show not going on, we might actually see a little bit more change than what we're seeing up till today.
And that's the thing that makes the Colin Kaepernick thing so huge, because like in order for that to happen, what you're talking about, these players have to decide, like, you know what, maybe I don't get paid next year because sitting out a couple of bubble games probably doesn't do it. Maybe we have to say, you know what, until y'all actually take us seriously, we're not playing next season either. But then they have to put their money on the line, like Kaepernick did with his money, his career, to actually make change. You brought up something, and I want to get everybody's opinion on this. So you said you were saying that you thought it was probably just going to be just Milwaukee, right? Like, well, of course, Orlando would be able to play either, but it was going to be more of a Milwaukee thing, keep the focus in Wisconsin. And I thought that too. I almost wonder if everybody boycotting, if they're not going to just shut it down, if everybody boycotting is almost counterproductive. And here's why I say that. When 4 years ago, when it was just Colin Kaepernick or just, 5 or 6 players here and there taking a knee, it was making this statement, right? And it was drawing attention. But the second now everybody takes the knee, in the bubble, now the story is when you don't. So it's like when Jonathan Isaac doesn't take a knee, when Myers Leonard doesn't take a knee, now that's the story. Why didn't you? As opposed to, which then draws the attention to the why not, as opposed to the why, because the why is what was important in the first place. Mm-hmm. And so I almost wonder if now, if I think it makes a bigger deal when Milwaukee's not playing and everybody else is. And I don't even really know how I feel about this, so I want to get you guys' opinions. Does it maybe make a bigger deal if 1 or 2 teams does it and not everybody? Because if everyone does it and it becomes the new norm, then it's less. It makes less impact. I just anybody's opinion on that.
No, we're quick to get desensitized. That's all I want to say. Americans are quick to get desensitized to things, which to right into your point, right? That's why I think if it would have stayed, the Bucks officially protested, it would have been a Milwaukee thing. Say something happened in Denver, it would have been a Denver thing. So I think to your point, sometimes protests can become white noise as they are today. Right. Portland's been protesting every day. Louisville's been protesting every day. We just don't talk about it.
I think when you see all these players coming together and making a joint decision, hey, man, I tweeted this. Ain't nothing scare America more than united black men. And that's not any disrespect to our sisters. Like, there's a specific reason why jails are filled with black men, right? Like, there's specific reasons why when our mothers and daughters and wives need assistance, the government doesn't allow men to be in the household. Like, there's specific reasons for these things. And so to see all these black dudes say, yeah, let's make a statement. Let's get the governor and the AD on the phone. Let's do what we need to do. Mark Larcy, you need to say something also. Let's force him to say something. NBA Coaches Association, they just released a tweet. They're behind the players. Like, they're forcing everybody to basically get down or lay down, to quote an old Beanie Siegel song. Like, that's what they're forcing everybody to do. Yep. And everybody's doing it. And the truth is, if they opt, I do believe the games are going to resume. I firmly believe that. But what they're basically showing the billionaires and the politicians, we can stop this whenever we want. we can. And if we do, what are you going to do? Brian, how long do you think this lasts, man? Just in terms of the games being played or not being played.
So that's interesting because I'm not 100% sure there. Just real quick before I get to that, Kev, to Kev's question, I think that it can be a fine line between taking away from it and to use a big trigger word that's big in 2020 is normalize. We want to normalize all these things. And I think when you bring up the fact that you're asking the two players that didn't kneel, hey, how come you didn't kneel? That could be looked at as kneeling as a form of protest is now becoming normalized, which could be a good thing. But I could also see it going the other way where the conversation's moving away from what it was intended to be. So that's a tricky one for sure. In terms of how long this boycott could last, it could be like we're going to go through the weekend and not see basketball. What I'm super interested in seeing, and Kev, I think you brought it up earlier, is like everybody's kind of looking at Kyrie now going like, oh shit, he was onto something there. Yeah. And I love Kyrie for that fact. And the fact that he is he's the VP of the Players Union, and that wasn't an easy decision. The players had to push to get Kyrie in that position. The league did not want Kyrie to be that powerful in the Players Union. And I think we're seeing now why the league did not want him to be that powerful in the Players Union. And we all know the president of the Players Union is Chris Paul. So Matt Barnes had said a little while back that before anybody even entered the bubble, he was having conversations with Chris Paul because one of the discussions was what do we do, right? And we talked about like having the slogans on the back of the jerseys and all of that, which is problematic in its own form because it had to be sanctioned by the league, and I think that that's completely counterproductive to what that's supposed to be. I don't think a protest slogan is something that the people in power should be approving, right? But one of the conversations that Chris Paul and Matt Barnes had was, how do we affect real change? How is it not just performative, right? Like, what do we do? What's the next steps? And one of the conversations Matt Barnes said was brought up was come up with a list of demands. And I think we might be at a point here where, I think at first it was like, oh, maybe this is just going to be the Bucks doing it and it's going to keep the focus on Wisconsin. But if all of these teams are behind the boycott and they're really coming together and going, wait, no, this shit's bigger. And we're tired of just having a slogan on the court and a couple things on the back of the jersey. Like what's the real meaningful change going to be? I think you will see them come together with a list of demands and say, hey, you know what? We're going to boycott and we're not playing basketball until, every team in the league severs its contract with the local police department that provides security at games, until every single team sets up a system within their neighborhoods and their cities to provide resources for families. Like it's not just, I don't want this performative shit from the owners anymore. I want them to put their billions where it matters and stop funding the police by having them provide security for the games, provide security for the teams, and start to completely sever the tie right there. And who knows? I don't know what else the demands might be, but I think that this could lead to something like that. And that's huge. And if they come up with a list of demands and they're not met, I mean, we could literally be looking at like a laborer's revolution here, right? Like anytime you have a union representing people and those needs aren't being met, you see the workers take over. And this could be to the point where you're saying like, hey, we're like the players are saying we're the product. We bring the money in. I know you set up the deals, but you don't get that shit without us. And we could, if we want to, go and start our own league. And if there was a players' own league, you better believe Gatorade, Nike, all that shit is following the players because they don't care about these billionaire owners if their arenas are empty. And so, I mean, this could be the start of something huge. Is it really going to be? I don't know. I'm not the most optimistic person on the face of the planet. I will admit to that. But I think that this could be setting up for something very big in that sense. And I would love to see the players push for that.
I do want to say this, and I want to give everybody an opportunity to kind of speak their piece before we close out. A lot of people expect the players to do something. It is not easy for any of these players to do what they're doing, whether it's playing or sacrificing their money, their well-being, their families. Like I understand why there might be black players who are hesitant because, like, as I mentioned at the top of the show, they're first generation millionaires. And as we've seen, you can lose several million, you can lose hundreds of millions of dollars. Their families are dependent on their basketball talent and for them to uplift their families into a different economic system. Unlike the billionaires who literally never go broke. There's never been a billionaire go bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand why some of these players might be thinking, wait a minute, like my entire family is dependent on me. Like if this goes sour, and look, we know players can be rich, but they can live check to check just like average Americans. Every
They
player is
sure
not
do.
LeBron James or Chris Paul. Like they're just not. So there's a lot for these players to think about individually for their families. Whatever they opt to sacrifice, I think that it's important for everybody to be appreciative of what they're doing because they're making themselves targets too, right? Like if one of us fire off a tweet on social media, whatever. But if they fire off a tweet or they say something publicly, those same police who are supposed to protect them at games might turn a blind eye to something. They could get pulled over at a certain point. Like they really put themselves in the line of fire because of how famous they are. So I did want to add that. But before we close out, I want to give everybody an opportunity to just speak your piece. Just say whatever's on your mind. So Renee, by all means, please.
My piece is pretty much unity. Just being together in this, staying together in this, having one goal, and that's for change. And not moving away from that. You know, by any means, and that's my piece. By any means possible, just stay unified and just work towards the goal of change for our people and the world as a whole. Because right now the world's going to shit. So that would be my piece for this.
What are you thinking, Ricky?
Oh man, I mean, it's again, this is another day in the United States of America. We got a basketball team and a league that is standing for change. Where this goes, we don't know, right? But we do know that this is a day, at least for the sports history books, where once again, sports stood still. At least basketball again, and one baseball team, right? I would love to continue to live my life being a podcaster for the Lakers and, continuing to grow this brand, growing the team, a crossover network. But at the same time, if we never played another basketball game again and the focus was just on racial equality and police brutality in this country and all resources, now that's the important thing, all resources was dumped into that, I'm A-okay. So, I love the NBA just like everybody else. You wake up every day, look at the games, but at the same time, there are more important things in this country, and the NBA players are showing that today.
What are you thinking, Brian?
I'm grateful to have been a part of this and hear everybody out here and get everybody's takes and perspectives on that. I just want to touch on a couple quick things that I wrote down here. The good cop thing is bullshit. Being a cop is an occupation. You can be a good person in that occupation, but at the end of the day, that's the occupation that we're talking about. And that's why it's fuck police. All right. It's not fuck people. It's fuck police because that occupation has to go. Kev, you brought up the people that say they don't want politics in their sports. I'm sorry, we're talking about human lives. Human lives aren't political, and we're talking about the liberation of human lives. It's not a political statement, and there's no compromise on that. So anybody who says that, all you're doing is trying to strip humanity away from an individual, and that's inherently not politics. That's you being a piece of shit. So whoever is saying that needs to go look in the mirror and realize that. And then lastly, I had two more things. Sorry. Sure. Who do they protect and serve? They protect and serve the system, right? Because change is not profitable. The police round up people to put in a prison for slave labor. In California, there's wildfires happening everywhere right now, and they're bigger than ever because the state literally relies on prisoners to help put out fires for $1 a day. And because of the COVID outbreak, they're limited to the amount of prison labor that they have to put that out. So who do they protect and serve? They protect and serve the prison industrial complex, right? Because this country runs on slave labor, and people need to understand that slavery did not end. It's still very much alive in this country. And lastly, get rid of the word reform. Fuck reform. We want to change it. We want to crush the system and put something better in its place. Reform is not the answer anymore. The time of reform is over. We've moved past that. It's way past reform. It needs to be crushed and rebuilt. That's my piece.
Kev, you want to bring us home?
That boy Brian saying it like it is. I love it, man. Seriously, like, and you just got to be honest. And I just want to thank you guys for coming on with all of us doing this, and this has been great. If I had to say anything to anyone, it's just, we gotta find a way to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. We gotta, while I'm kind of sick of of having the conversations mantra, I'm kind of ready for action. We got to be comfortable with looking in the mirror and being like, okay, like, what did I do today that really, makes me any better than the people I critique when it comes to X, Y, and Z? How stereotypical was I acting towards, person A over here, when it's the very same thing, just in a different perspective. Obviously, it's not the same thing, but you guys get to the point. And so, I mean, I continue to, I'm glad that, us here at Crossover, we're becoming a family who can get together and have conversations and talk and piggyback on one another. And for those out there, find whoever that is for you, whether that's your blood family or, work colleague family or close friends or whatever, and talk and help comfort each other and just keep hope alive. It's easy to lose hope, lose faith. Just like you, Brian, I'm not a very optimistic person when it really comes down to it. But, it ain't people like it. It's not people like me. I'm not the one who's going to come out here and just make America better. So, I can be pessimistic, but, y'all be optimistic for me. But yeah, let's just, there's not really much more we can do other than have conversations. But, if you find people in power, man, challenge them. Again, it might be uncomfortable, but you grow by putting yourself in a situation that's not as comfortable as you'd like, stepping out your comfort zone. You got bosses who abuse their power. Like I had that girl, Emily Applegate from the Washington Post, she's comfortable with stepping out and putting her neck out there to challenge the people in power in Washington. And you see the changes that are happening there. So, don't be afraid to call somebody out on their bullshit. Don't be afraid to let people know that it is not okay, whatever that means. And that's for anybody in any position. There's always a way to do everything. There's a way to say everything, but everything can be said. So, just be comfortable with being uncomfortable, y'all. And again, thank you guys for doing this all together. This was great.
I want to say shout out to all the protesters, man, out there putting their lives on the line, dealing with law enforcement and with the damn pandemic. Like, there's no social distancing in a protest. They're putting their lives on the line. And so I want to say thank you to them. And something that sticks in my mind a lot when I think about the protest and everything that's going on, like I see, people say, be peaceful. Martin Luther King was peaceful. He wanted peace with all the races. And my wife will tell you, I often say, they killed Martin Luther King, and he was a peaceful man. They killed Malcolm X. I believe in both of those two men. It didn't matter whether you were militant or you were not. They both ended up dead. And so for me, there needs to be change. There needs to be reform. You need to burn the system down to the ground. That's the bottom line. I don't think that's going to happen even in my lifetime. I turn 39 next week. I can't believe it.
Youngin.
Yeah, Alex, jeez.
Youngin.
You starting to get up there, dog. Good Lord, dog.
Yeah, man. 39 next week. And I never thought that I would feel the way that my grandfather felt in the 60s and in the 50s and in the 40s. But there are days like today when I wake up and I'm just like, despite all the wonderful things that me and my wife have, sometimes this shit just sucks. And it's a lot to deal with. So I want to say thank you to all of you also for at the last minute coming together, jumping on for us to chat about this, sharing your feelings. That's one of the reasons I started Crossover. I didn't expect us to be having this conversation a couple weeks into us doing this crossover thing, but here we are. And unfortunately, we'll probably be getting together again to have these conversations over and over. So anyone out there that is feeling overwhelmed, dealing with mental health issues, dealing with anxiety, I encourage you to seek help. I will tweet out a number of resources if you're in the Maryland area. I will do my best to get some. There's some folks I know in Florida. I'll get some resources for you if you're in the Florida area. I'll do my best to get some resources out there for you that if you need help. As I mention all the time, my wife is a mental health clinician. We need help, man. You can't, there's no out toughing stress and anxiety and mental health issues. So if you're dealing with something, as many of us probably are with all this stuff, get help. So
Amen.
I'll close us out on that.
Brother.
You've been watching Crossover.